Welcome to PhD with Woman on It Hack the Future. My name is Beata Young, and today's PhD Positivity Hack delivered will be by Sylvia Dziuba. Topic: late owls, early birds, and everything in between. Episode 117 starts here. Let me remind you, this is a grassroots community that focuses on women on IT, an inclusive forum of women in technology, startups, and female leaders who are supported by men as well. And I bring heart to that hustle because empathy is my mojo. And empathy is critical when you're either late owl, early birds, and everything in between. Let me remind you what's been happening in the world of technology. Rebecca Murray, former PhD guest, thank you very much for sharing your journey and raising awareness this Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Your story is truly moving, and your strength in battling breast cancer is incredibly inspiring. We wish you all the best, not just health. Darinka Burowska, congratulations. She was also our PhD guest. Congratulations on the impressive product discovery journey at Makerverse. Your dedication over the past 5 months and teamwork in shaping a customer-centric platform is truly commendable. Kudos to the entire team and leadership. Heidi Weil, founder and CEO of Venti, won the Women in Tech Startup Awards at the second annual Women in Tech America Awards held at Washington, D.C. last September 27th. Keep shining, girl. Now, let's go back to our topic, late owls, early birds, and everything in between. For this episode, we will be joined by sleep science enthusiast Sylvia Dziuba, whose recent book, Go to Sleep Late and Other Advice for Night Owls, deploys the latest research to deliver top tips aligning your daily routines with your unique chronotype. Whether you're a night owl, an early bird, or somewhere in between, this episode will empower you to optimize your sleep and wake up feeling more energized and focused. Join us, ask questions, talk to us, and share with us your sleep patterns. So let's start with a simple question, Sylvia. Where in the world are you joining us from?
I'm joining you from Adelaide in Australia. It's 2:30 in the morning. It's a good thing I'm a night owl, even though it's a little bit past my bedtime.
It's 2:30 in the morning, so you already went into the autumn time, right? The
Yes,
winter time.
daylight savings for summer. It's actually, yes, we're in the spring coming on to summer. Yes.
Excellent. Cool. Well, I'm glad that you're still awake, and I'm very privileged to have you live on our show, even though it's very late in your sphere. So, Sylvia, we met in, I believe, in 2014, and you talked about your startup journey because you just won the Startup Weekend Award. You took the first place. Tell us about your journey since then.
Yes. Oh, wow. My journey. The number one spot that I won for that hackathon was actually about an idea for the construction sector, the property sector, about quotes. That never really panned out, but then that encouraged me to maybe learn a little bit more about coding, and that's what I did. But I continued within the property and the construction sector. I worked very long hours, but most of all, very, very early mornings. For a few years after that, I think it wasn't until about 2017, 2018 that I just couldn't continue any longer. It wasn't conducive to my chronotype, which I am a night owl, obviously. And I went for a holiday to Europe, and I just started writing to make some money on the side. Well, because we stayed there for quite a long time. And yes, so that's my journey since then. I started writing, people were liking it, and then I enrolled at uni. So I'm in my last year of professional writing and publishing. And during that time, that allowed me to actually just experiment with, because I was beating myself up. I thought I'd maybe, if I just try harder, if I just push myself harder, I'll be able to wake up early and sleep all night. But I was never able to. I was able to wake up early. Obviously, that was my job, but I was getting very burned out because I could never fall asleep before about 1:30 maybe. And, just staring at the ceiling, tried everything in the books. So when I did quit and when I went into writing, I started going to sleep as an experiment when I felt like sleeping. And that was usually around 1:30, 2 a.m. And I slept for 7 to 8 hours like a normal person, woke up, felt productive, felt amazing. And I thought, well, how about I look into it? So I started doing a lot of research. And 2 years later, with a lot of research, I've published a book and I'm ready to share.
Fabulous. Speaking of the book, we gonna share the cover of your amazing baby. So I wanted to ask you though, how is it possible for example, mothers who have no chance of going to sleep when they want, but they have to do as their children demand?
Yes, it's a really good question. Just a little interesting note. Your body will actually make you go into labor according to your chronotype. So as a general rule, night owls usually go into labor either in the evening or nighttime. And morning types usually go into labor in the morning because your body knows when it can be the most, where it can get the most energy out of you. So that's a good sign. But yes, with motherhood, it's a little bit difficult because your baby doesn't really, all babies are morning people and all teenagers are night owls. Not many people know that. So it's a little bit tricky, and especially for those parents who have children that go to school and they're night owl. It's hard because you have to get up early, you have to get them ready. And whether even if you manage to align your lifestyle with your chronotype, if you're a night owl, it's very hard. So there are some tips though. You can help family members who are naturally aligned that way to help you out. You can help your partner who might sometimes be a little bit of a, you might be a night owl, he might be more of a morning. You can change duties according to that, to that chronotype. And also, obviously, if you're a parent and you do have a child at school, you can look at options such as homeschooling, which a lot of people are doing now.
Homeschooling, partner sharing duties, and also there would be an observation how to manage that time together when your partner is a different chromosome, as you say.
Yes, well, there is some. For example, a very famous author, I think his name is Brenton Sand. I'm not quite sure, but yes, he's a very night owl. His wife is a very much a morning type. And when they got married, she pleaded with him to go to sleep with her every day because it's nice. But no, it never worked out. He was miserable. She eventually was really miserable because he was feeling so bad. And they just go to sleep at different times. But they try and spend time with each other as much as they can during the day. It's not a huge misalignment. I mean, one person gets up like 6, 7, another person gets up 8, 9, sometimes slightly later. But it's not too big of a.
Yeah. I can imagine, though, Sylvia, that lots of these tree hugging, environmentalists are screaming now because you should not be using any artificial lighting because it generates a lot of electricity and electricity is very scarce. So what would you say to them?
Well, the only lights in my house are very LED, very low, even though it looks quite bright on here. I think my computer is helping to brighten up the space. But it's just my laptop and a little light. And also we have solar. We have photovoltaic panels on our roof, so that helps with the whole energy sustainability part of it.
Good. Okay, so Sylvia, how do I recognize what type of chromosome am I? Is it just by observing how I behave, how my body behaves when I'm craving for that extra hour of sleep?
It's a couple of things. So everyone's chronotype is really unique. And we like to put people into 3 categories, like the morning person, the in-betweener, and the night owl. But the truth is that we are really truly unique, and that changes over our lifetime as well. An interesting fact is a lot of night owls do become slightly more earlier people as they age. Once they go past 40, 50, they actually start to wake up earlier. It's good to run experiments, but the one very major thing that you need to do is to reset yourself to start with, because you might be in misalignment. So as soon as you wake up in the mornings, expose yourself to the sunlight outside for about 10-15 minutes. Do that for about a week or 2 if you can. Maybe do it on your holidays, and then naturally feel your body. Feel like, have a breakfast about an hour after you wake up, and then just see how you're feeling. If you're more of a drowsy person in the morning, there is a slight chance you might actually be a night owl, and your brain becomes more active in the evening and nighttime. This is very typical of night owls. But then just pay attention to when you're creative, when you're energetic, when you're more alert cognitively, where you can make decisions, and then just see if you are on all those holidays and you're trying to reset yourself, go to sleep naturally. Because people say, well, it's all about discipline to wake up early in the morning. Well, morning people don't need discipline. They literally, my sister jumps out of bed at 5 a.m. Nobody has to wake her up. She's up. That's it. She goes, she takes a shower, she goes for a little bit of exercise. And they say it's hard because maybe they mean they would like to stay in bed and maybe play on their phone. But the truth is they're not awake anymore. And that happens with everybody. Is our bodies is not inclined to sleep more than 7 and 8 hours. So it doesn't take discipline to wake up, because your body releases cortisol and it wakes you up. There's nothing you can do. So there's no discipline. Discipline shouldn't be a part of the language when it comes to sleep. And there is very small number of people, I'm sure, that maybe if you let them, they'll sleep for 12 or 16 hours. Maybe there is people like that, but it's not something that research has looked into it. Most sleeping clinics observe 7 to 8 hour pattern when people are allowed to sleep as much as they want.
Well, how does the sleep impacts, how does the daylight impact humans? Because we know that nowadays we have all these technological advancements and very heavy blinds that make us feel like it's still in the middle of the night when we wake up until we check our phones.
Yes, so this was a big deal for me, actually. When I first started the experiment, I started going to sleep slightly later and later. Like 3, 4 a.m. And I'm like, oh, I don't know, because then I still woke up around 9, 10 a.m. So I would not get enough sleep, like 5, 6 hours. I'm thinking, am I like a 5 to 6 hour person, or is there something wrong with? And it was just by chance that I discovered that it was a pure thing of what you're saying. The blinds, the roller blinds outside, we have those shutters that make the room completely black. And when we went for a holiday to visit our son in Melbourne, he had no blinds, no curtains. It was a brand new house that they built with his wife, and and we slept in the guest room, which had no. And I started almost within days started going to sleep at my normal time, 1:32 a.m. And I'm thinking, maybe it's the blinds. So when we came back home, because my husband likes it dark, but I said, look, we got to open up the roller shutters a little bit. My brain, through the eyelids, needs to see when the sun starts to come up, so that I will go back to my normal sleeping. And that's what happened. And that's where it stayed. I go to sleep almost on the dot between 1:30 and 2 a.m. in the morning.
And you wake up?
7 to 8 hours later.
Mm.
And
If
because this is for ladies, I will just interrupt you one thing. We do get interruption of sleep during just pre-period, around the period time. So
mhm.
this is something that men don't get, but we do, and a lot of women do get it. And it happens to me as well. I can have a whole night ruined because I'm just about to get my period.
Interesting. Is it then the cramps, or is it just natural kind of body function of preparing for releasing?
It's to do with the hormones, and they don't exactly know why, but it does really disrupt your sleeping patterns.
Hmm.
But not for everybody.
Mm. Well, we have lots of comments, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry, I was so captivated by our talk that I forgot to mention who's talking to us. Olga Vasina. Oh, wow, that is a practice as you preach, night owl. Hi, Sylvia. Springing
Hi.
forward to PhD to Adelaide. Indeed. And I POV'd in Patrick's opinion. That's Patrick Young, my husband. Wow, so if women can discern their chronotype from when they go into labor, how do men find out?
It's it's just the standard, resetting your clock for men and just observing your body. So if you wake up in the morning and you face this, you have to go outside. The sun is the light is completely different on the inside of the house. Even if you stand right next to the window, it's like 1,000 times lesser. There's a scientist, Andrew Huberman, who's done these studies, and he says there's no other way around it. Stand out under a tree in the shade. Obviously, don't be silly and look at the sun, but just be outside. And there is ganglion cells that are inside of your retina that are actually reading the tone of the light. And all you need is about 10-15 minutes, and the master clock in your brain will start to set the clock. So, for example, if both a morning person and a night owl, let's say for a man, gets outside 7-8 o'clock in the morning and looks at being exposed to the sunlight, the morning person will start to feel sleepy around 8, 9, 10, whereas the night owl will not feel that until about midnight, 1, 2 a.m. So
Mm,
it doesn't, and if they can repeat it day on day in, day out, it's still going to be the same because the process is in your body. The time that you release melatonin, the time where you release cortisol, and there is other chemicals that build up in your body, and every cell has a little clock that synchronizes with the master clock, and all of them work together. So you really have to read your body, read how you're feeling. Are you sleepy? Are you tired? Yes.
mm. Well, we've got Aiden as well asking, hi Sylvia, do you think being a night owl is more common among certain personality types or professions?
Oh, personality types or professions. Well, I have noticed that there is a lot of software developers and engineers that do prefer to stay up later at night. I don't know whether they've chosen the profession because it seems that that's the only sector that's a little bit more flexible when it comes to their employees, because I think good developers are in high demand, and the employers are more likely to let them come in like 10 or 11 a.m., and let them stay longer to finish the job. And maybe because just by default, that profession doesn't always have you facing a customer. So you don't have to be at work at a certain time and still get your work done for the day. But in terms of a personality type, not really. The only correlation is that bipolar are often actually misdiagnosed night owls.
Mm,
Bipolar are generally night owls, and like a huge percentage, more than 90%. And this is the only people that should never reset their clock by trying to wake up early and look at the sun. They are the only people that should go outside around midday, because it can be actually have more detrimental effects than for a normal person. But yeah.
mm. Right. So now the question would be, which is I've got my personal gain here. The weather-related sleepiness. Whenever the weather changes, I just feel like sleeping, and there is no coffee amount that can keep me awake.
Yeah.
What is the science behind us?
I think it's because there is so much more mystery to discover how our body works and how it aligns itself with the environment around it. But sometimes it just comes to a simple fact of there is a chemical called adenosine in our body that builds up together with sleep deficit. So if you have a number of nights, even sometimes months, where you're cutting that 1 or 2 hours from your sleep, that buildup of that chemical will finally just say, look, that's it. I'm going to make you feel so sleepy. You're going to have to just give in, at least have a nap or something like that. So maybe it's not so much weather correlated, although it very much could be. I mean, our body reacts to everything, including changing time zones. That's where I'm lucky. If I go to Europe, I become a morning person for a very short time, and I don't have to feel the jet lag that the morning people do. So I can wake up in Paris at 7 a.m., go into a cafe, and just enjoy a full day. Because for me, that's nighttime in Australia.
Mm. So you talk about in between, but I've heard actually it's first time that I heard of when I was reading and preparing for our chat today. I heard of permanently exhausted pigeon. Can you tell us something about that?
No, I can't. I'm not familiar with it. Tell me, what is it?
There, there you go. Well, that is apparently if we are forced to sleep and wake outside of our natural window of sleep, we become sleep deprived. So that's
That is, it's called social jet lag. It's actually in in research and studies called social jet lag. That means it's basically like you're living in a different country all the time. You're being on jet lag because your chronotype is misaligned with your lifestyle and with the social accept. What is socially acceptable in where you are, and mostly it's you know you're expected to wake up and go to work and start at 9 a.m. Yes.
Mhm. Mm. Which is very very difficult for some people who cannot change the working hours, especially in certain professions. You just cannot maneuver these hours. So, what would be the advice from Sylvia to these people?
Well, if there's anybody watching that's in HR, Boeing, for example, in Australia has two shifts that they offer to people. One of the shifts starts at 7:30 in the morning to 3 a.m., 3 p.m. And another one that starts, I don't know what time, but it finishes at 10:30. And I know that one of my son's girlfriends has actually chosen the later one because then that allows her to sleep in. So it's more of an advice. Well, if you're an employee, you can always try and address the subject if you think that your employer is open to it. But some studies show that if you think your employer is not open to it, they're very much like morning is great, then best not to talk about it because that actually might put you in a bad view with people around you and the employer. But yes, people are getting more and more open-minded about these things, and as you can see, like even Boeing Australia, which the airline company, is making adjustments to accommodate both the early wakers and the late wakers by offering them two shifts. And
Mm,
obviously working remotely is a great other idea because you can and if you can't really, because let's say you have a white collar job that you have to have be at certain times, it's good to maybe find remote work. But for example, for me, if I had to be up early, remote work would allow me to work with Europe um, because I could be awake during their 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. to 4. You know what I mean? I'd be
mm,
working remotely, but maybe I could be facing customers through some kind of an application where I'm up in the morning, but not in the place where I am at.
mhm. Well, apparently, up to 40% of the population may have early bird or night owl predispositions. Additional research indicates about 10% of the population is comprised of extreme night owls or early birds who may get chronically fatigued, sick, or depressed if they work a schedule counter to their nature. How would you discover the counter nature behavior?
Well, the UK has actually done the biggest study in the world, over 300,000 people. And like you're saying, people who are misaligned with a chronotype do become depressed. They live a lot less than people who are aligned. And they develop things such as type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. So if you're doing everything you can, for example, to lose weight and you can't lose weight, you might look at a probable misalignment, for example. For me, I know that as soon as I did, I have, my weight kept on creeping up until I actually lost. I left the job and started, and it's not like I'm still eating the same, but the kilos are every year, 3 to 4 kilos are coming down. So I'm getting more and more closer to my previous weight before.
We have a question from Mary. Hi, Sylvia. Do you think being a night owl affects our social life or relationships? How to manage social commitments then?
Yes, so it does very much affect, because there is the fact that your chronotype should also be aligned with when you eat and when you don't eat, for example, which means socializing. But the thing is that in terms of social life, it's more that if you're a morning person, it's really good. Most morning people go for an exercise in the morning, whereas if you're a night owl, there's nothing that's going to make you go and exercise in the morning unless you like crazy do it for a short period of time with some willpower, and you're going to give up anyway. But that means that night owls don't really exercise in the evening either, because that's when they're catching up with their friends and they catching up with family. So that does affect you. But in terms of relationships, I mean, look, it's nuanced, but at the end of the day, if you really structure your day and your week, you can make it work. You can actually, rather than looking at all the negatives that your chronotype offers you, you can look at the positives and work around it, work around brunches. If you cannot catch someone up for breakfast somewhere, because it's too early, there is ways around. In terms of relationships, it's a little bit more tricky, especially when you're misalignment. I'm a little bit lucky because my husband's kind of a later chronotype as well, so we kind of match up, go to sleep at the same time. But when it happens with a husband and wife that are misaligned,
yeah, could be a matter of divorce. Who knows? Well, there is a way, I'm sure we can find a lucky compromise. Sylvia, one thing I wanted to ask you though, because it's really interesting how you re-establish yourself over and over. You've started your career doing something different. Tell us about what you've been doing in the past.
Oh, in the past, I started working very early. I was 15 when I got my first job, and it was a retail job, working for a shop. I mean, each of my jobs have taught me something. But yes, and I was still at school when I was doing this. It was after school and on Saturdays. Then I got married very early again, at 17. We went to Adelaide, and there was a recession. And I had no idea what to do because neither myself or my husband could find a job. So at a friend's dinner, he said his kitchen looked horrible. I said, I'll make one for you. I'll build it. And for some reason, he gave me money, and I took before and after photos, and our cabinet making business was born. So then, but then I got a little bit, displacent. I worked as a real estate agent. I worked as a sales and marketing manager for all of Australia for a software company that that deals with the property and the construction market. So it was people that I could speak to, that I spoke their language. Yes, I really have worked in a lot of different sectors, in a lot of different scenarios, but I think each job has taught me something, and it brought a richness into my life. At the end of the day, though, I think I'm best suited for a self-proprietary kind of situation where I'm working for myself.
Excellent. And you also, after publishing this book, you have an ambition to publish more.
Yes, but I have started. I've got a couple of books that I'm thinking about writing, and I have started some of them, but I haven't chosen one yet. At the end of the day, I am focusing more now on writing for magazines and for businesses within the property sector. So I'm having fun doing that, and yes. But in terms of books, I'm still not sure what the next one's going to be.
So who knows, you may choose a different sleeping pattern since you're discovering, and you might be some other bird, something in between.
I don't think so. My mom, oh yeah, no, another thing, the question about men, whether they're a night owl. A good indicator is if one of your parents or grandparents is a night owl. There's a good chance that you might be one as well,
Mm,
because it is genetic. Obviously, it's passed on in the genes. So it's something that, like I said, it is something that is genetic, but it does sometimes change over time, which means as we get older, we might start to wake up earlier. And we just have to be looking out for the little signs. If you feel tired, if you're sleepy, go to bed.
mm. Isn't it a threat to the working environment if you're refusing, or you're talking about the fact that you would prefer different hours? And maybe manager may think, well, I would prefer somebody like something like artificial intelligence working instead of this person, because I can start AI program anytime.
There is a huge stigma still in the workplace when it comes to night owls. They are still perceived as lazy and irresponsible. So as soon as you start talking about starting later times, yes, definitely research has shown that people do get treated differently and eventually lose their jobs, and they do
Mm,
not get promoted like the way. So you have to be careful who you speak to. You have to kind of have a feeling for, does my boss have an open mind? Does my manager think that this, yeah, you have to kind of have your feelers out.
mm,
um, I think there was another question about relationships as well. And research has shown that people, and this is talking about morning people who have night shifts,
mm-hmm,
so they're in misalignment, um, are like 50% more likely to get a divorce.
mm-hmm,
So, and that's not really much to do because they are misaligned with their partner, but more because they just become a different person. When you constantly live in misalignment, you do become grumpy, you become depressed, you start treating other people differently. Over time, it deteriorates, and it's not a good path.
mm. Well, the best bridge between despair and hope is a good night's sleep, or good day's sleep if you're a night owl. That's Joseph Kosman saying. Now, Sylvia, speaking about your career and how it shaped you as a person and your entrepreneurship, what is the number one book you can sit and think, I wish I read it before I started my career?
Well, I've recently finished a book called Grit by Angela Duckworth. And I think what I was lacking all these years is that staying power, which on the one hand gave me the experience and the richness. But on another hand, when you don't stick to something, you're forever starting. You're forever starting in a sector, you're forever starting in a certain job, in a certain career. And you deprive yourself of the experience of how good it feels to master something, to be loyal to a certain path that you've selected, and also the rewards that you receive as part of it, including financial rewards, and also the credibility that you build up within a specific niche that you've uh, you know, that you have worked so hard for. And she talks about grit, and she talks about grit in terms of sticking to something, but also she contrasts natural talents against just sticking to something, even if to start with you didn't even like it. There is so many stories that she brings up of people who hated the career at the start, but then they just started learning more about it, getting into it, sticking with it, and ending up loving it and being passionate about it and being recognized in their field. So there is that, you know, because people are forever looking for their passion. But if you just have a little bit of interest, start somewhere, and just get more and more interested and more curious about what you're doing, as it turns out, you can really get addicted to it almost, and you can really thrive and be happy and feel fulfilled.
That almost sounds, Sylvia, like the prenup for our next PhD episode, because actually we have prepared the poster for the next episode, and we are going to talk about replace judgment with curiosity. That's next week. But before we wrap up, I have a couple of more questions, Sylvia, because you're definitely a curious mind and you've got lots and lots of answers. So now, Sylvia, tell us, why why do you think you won? I mean, your idea won the startup weekend, because there was quite a tough competition, and as you mentioned, you had nothing to do with technology, you didn't know how to code, so it's quite a big challenge in the line of great IT specialist to win.
This thing popped up on my computer and I thought, this is interesting. I'll go check it out. When I went there, I had no idea what a developer was. That's how bad I knew how to use my computer. But the thing is that by then I was in the cabinet making, joinery, construction sector for about 10 to 15 years by then. I knew it really well, and I knew the need that existed within the market. And I think that's what made me, because I had a very specific solution to a very big problem. And I think when I put it up on the wall, people just, because there was, I think, 35 other people that put a huge poster on the wall and they put the idea down. And anybody who wanted to join the team put their name down underneath. And more and more people were starting to put their name down under my idea. So I had a pick of the developers that were available, the designers, and even a woman from, I think, IBM Business. And so I had a really great team. And I think because I identified a problem within an existing market that I was a part of, that helped me. Because at the end of the day, it was investors, it was angels, and that were sitting there and they were judging it. And I think the second part that made me win was that by then I actually dabbled a lot in graphic design, and the understanding on, because I was involved in marketing as part of my career before, I knew how to reach a customer. And the way that I presented the slide, the pitch, was really simple. The graphics were large with a lot of empty space, and the clarity of the idea from one to the other, whereas the other teams had like tiny little writing, and they were basically just reading what was written there. And there was a lot of pictures, and it was messy. My idea was very clear, very simple, clean, and to the point.
I guess it's also the maturity of your and the experience that you could bring to the table that really impressed the judges. And also, I'm so proud of, a female representation and CEO of a startup company winning this. So, Sylvia, now what do you think are the 5 most important qualities in any female who want to start their career as an entrepreneur?
Right. I think it's really important to listen, to be a good listener. Actively listen, and don't just listen to what people are saying. Think about it in a critical way, as in, why are they saying it? Why is this being presented to me? why even when you're reading things on the internet, to look beyond, because somebody put it up that they had an agenda, it was framed in a certain way. You can look for what's missing. Why wasn't it something else presented? Why wasn't another option put forward? I think that that's some of the qualities that you can bring to the table, which help you not only find what it is that you're looking for, enter a certain business, but also then identify the gaps that are really opportunities, that you can explore. Obviously, whether you're a man or a woman, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I think being a woman, sometimes I think in this world we're asked to almost act like a man, be like a man. Women are very masculine these days. I am naturally more of a confident and masculine person with a technical mind, but I think that women are missing out on just the embracing the femininity, the whatever flavor that makes you who you are, your femaleness, but everything else, your whole life experience, bringing that to the table, I think allows you to not only enrich the lives of others, because so many people want to be like everybody, like say what everybody else is saying and be on the same page, but sometimes your idea and your unique perspective can enrich others, can show them a different worldview, and you can gain friends, and you can gain investors, and you can gain fans by being slightly different, by offering a slightly different perspective.
Mm. Excellent. You can be slightly different, you can be unique. And Sylvia is definitely one of the role models that shine in Australia. So, Sylvia, I know that for a fact that you are Polish origin. So, how was it accustoming to a different lifestyle, a different? Your husband, is he Polish as well?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
When I first arrived in Australia, I was 13, so I was still quite young. But the only words I knew was "hello, how do you do," which we don't even say. It was funny. But no, within 3 months I spoke enough to communicate, and within a year I spoke fluently. I think the only stark contrast was because I was so young was school. The
Mm-hmm.
way that students have no respect for teachers here, whereas I came from an environment where teachers were very respected and everyone studied very hard. I think that's a Polish culture. And here, I experienced students throwing stuff at the teachers and calling them names, and yeah, just but then the other contrast that was good was that Australia is very chilled and is very laid back, and you feel it when you arrive here. People are very warm and open, and there is no distinction. Everyone who is an Aussie is an Aussie. You're Australian, that's it. In America, they make those distinctions. You're an African American, you're an Asian American, and Italian American, and you're just Australian.
Mm-hmm.
You have an accent, don't have an accent, you're an Aussie. It does not matter, and you're treated as such. I experienced a very little, discrimination, and it is a really nice and warm place to be, and it is really laid back and beautiful.
It sounds almost like you're encouraging our listeners to come to Australia. That's lovely. Thank you, Sylvia, for being such a great promoter of that sunny island. Now, can you?
Welcome.
Now, I love this quote by Eleanor Roosevelt, who once said, "Women are like tea bags. We don't know our true strength until we are in hot water." So, in life, how are you in hot water, Sylvia? How are you brewing?
Sometimes I get myself into hot water accidentally.
Mm.
But I think that I do thrive under pressure quite well.
Mhm.
I tend to slow down when things pick up. I think I'm more uncomfortable when it's more relaxed, because then there is just too many things to focus on, too many things that I could be doing. Whereas I am very focused when it comes to being in hot water under pressure, I guess. But it's true, you know. Sometimes when you are faced with a no option situation where you have to come, you know, for example, I don't know, at work, or even if you're studying, or a, a client asks you to do something you haven't done before, you know, you rise to the challenge, and then you think you're scared, but then you do it, and you like, I did it, and then you learn how to do it better, and then you get that satisfaction out of it. I think it's great.
Mm. You get that satisfaction and you thrive under pressure. That's Sylvia in a nutshell. Now, can you please give us your life lesson quote and how did it change you?
Well, my quote is from Jesus. I am a Christian. Is to love others like you love yourself. I think that throughout my life, maybe I got a little bit influenced with the whole ideology of this world being like, maybe slightly even more feminist. You know, the self-love, the self-care, the egocentric approach to life. And I remember even when I was young, there were some women that were so dedicated to their families, and they were looked upon as pathetic, as in they've given up their life for these kids, right? But I think that that can be a beautiful thing. I think that living your life for others and making sacrifices and kicking self-love in the butt can be a really enriching experience, and I think a lot more fulfilling.
Mm. Well, that's interesting because I started looking at this quotation quite differently recently because I believe it doesn't say love others more than yourself. It actually refocuses our dynamic by first we need to love ourselves and then those around us.
I think it's not that hard. I think we love ourselves anyway, even though people say hate themselves, love themselves. I mean, they don't wake up in the morning and pour boiling water over themselves. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, we wash ourselves, we feed ourselves, we sleep, we do certain things that because, but yes, but I think that refocusing that on others. Uh, anyway, I have made the switch in my life, and I do find it, you know, paying attention. Is this person sad? You know, is what are their needs? I think we can be slightly too focused on ourselves sometimes.
Mm. Or we can be slightly too harsh on ourselves.
Maybe.
Maybe. Well, speaking of being harsh, Patrick says, fabulous show. Whatever my chronotype, I was wide awake throughout. Thank you, Sylvia and Beata. Thank you, Patrick. I hope you're going to discover it soon. Now, Sylvia, if you imagine that you could travel anywhere in the world and have a private breakfast, private meeting with anybody in the world, who would you choose and where would be the chosen location?
Yes, and you know, there is so many interesting people in this world that I would love to meet and talk to and pick their brains. um, but you know, I love spending time with my husband. He is such an interesting person, and we have so many interesting conversations together every single day that it would definitely have to be him. I'd take him, and we'll go to the Lake Como. There is a hotel there, Il Sereno, that was designed by Patricia Archiola, and it's amazing. It overlooks the lake, and I'd love to just sit there, have a
Mm,
brekkie, and have a conversation with my husband.
And what would be the brekkie? Would it be Italian, French, Polish sausage?
Smashed Avo.
Oh,
Are
wow.
you familiar with that one?
So
It's
it's
a
a
very
smash.
Aussie thing.
All
So
right.
it's
So tell us.
avocado with some yes, well it's if you're in Australia, this is like every single cafe will have it. We'll have smashed avocado with poached egg and some other, you know, variations like bacon, or whether it's some greens or tomato. So hash brown, yes, very Aussie
Mm.
breakfast.
Well, it makes me hungry now and not so much sleepy. Now, Sylvia, speaking of habits, how would you advise those who are talking about diet? We touched upon the diet thing about how you lost your weight by working at the different hours. Now, how would you say our eating patterns should align with sleeping? Because I've heard so many times that we should not eat 2 hours before we go to bed. What's the science suggesting? Is there anything that you could tell us?
Yes, definitely. There's a lot of science and it's consistent. You know how sometimes there is studies that go, oh, maybe this way, maybe that way. This is consistent. And it's not two, it's actually at least three. And it depends how much you have had to eat. Could be as much as 6 hours. Now, the bigger the gap, the better for you, the better for your sleep, the better for your health, and the better, especially for your weight. What happens is your body, it knows that it's like, for example, I don't know what time you go to sleep, but let's say you're just like a normal person, you go to sleep around 10:30. I mean, that's quite consistent with the in-betweeners, with the intermediates.
Mm-hmm.
10:30 means that 7:30 is 3 hours beforehand. Your master clock in your brain knows it's 3 hours before time. So what it does, it starts to wind up all the processes that have to do with digestion. So if, for example, then you suddenly feel like a snack at 9 p.m. and you have, whether it's a sip of wine, whether it's a little, you grab something or a little snack or anything like that, your body isn't at that point able to process the glucose. It's not able to process all of the things that are in there. So what it does, it treats it like a toxin and it puts it into fat cells.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you consistently do that, the more obviously you put on weight. So you might be even a person who doesn't eat all day long. You only have one meal a day, and it's, let's say, 7 or 8 p.m. and you go to sleep at 10. In most cases, you will either be barely able to maintain that weight and you will slowly start to put on weight. So even such a huge restriction of having just one meal at the wrong time is going to either, it's going to be very hard on your body. And the thing is, it's not just about weight. It's about your body not being able to process the nutrients. So all the, all the micro traces, the minerals, anything like this, it's not able to process it and absorb it and utilize it because all your cells are preparing to fall asleep. It's like if you eat, for example, at the right time. So you shouldn't really start eating about like 45 minutes to an hour after you wake up, because your body's still catching up. It knows you've woken up. It's preparing your stomach to receive the food. What happens at night is some people are actually really bad and start eating very late. So sometimes they'll be in a club or somewhere out with friends and they pass their bedtime, right? And they normally go to sleep between 10 and 11, but they're out and it's still midnight and they're still grabbing something. What happens is, if you do that on a consistent basis, for example, like shift workers, they eat when they're supposed, their body is actually so it doesn't matter if you're up, your body is in a rest phase because of your clock in your brain, right? Which means your stomach lining has just been depleted of the protective lining because it's getting rebuilt. And so the stomach walls are exposed, and the toxins that need to process this food are now eating through your stomach wall. And that's why people get ulcers, for example. So it's a lot of things that come together. It's not just the weight. It's about your body at that phase is trying to rebuild itself. It's not prepared to receive food.
And what about afternoon nap?
It's great. There is a lot of research that suggests, especially if one of those people that you're either unable to sleep for 7 to 8 hours, or you're one of the people that unfortunately has to wake up early. Naps are amazing. And there is in the warmer climates, there's a lot of studies that show people have a biphasic sleep. So they will actually almost cut their sleep in half. They'll go to sleep for a little bit and like a long siesta, or even twice during the night. Some people go to sleep at 7 p.m., wake up at around 10, 11, and then be awake until 3 a.m. and then go to sleep and, at 3 a.m. and wake up at 7, 8. So completely broken sleep, but not really. As long as you get the 7 to 8 hours during the 24-hour cycle, naps can be quite restorative and recharging.
Well, there is lots to discover, and as you said, there is lots of research, but we are still in the dark when it comes to knowing all the functions of our brain, how it functions, where it wakes up, and how it should be for our own body and for our sanity. The early bird gets the worm, but the second mouse gets the cheese, Willie Nelson says. And now, ladies and gentlemen, that's time we wrap up our lovely chat with Sylvia Dziuba today. Thank you very much, Olga Wasina, Patrick Young, and Aiden and Mary for your comments. And I'm grateful for you, Sylvia, to staying so late. Have a good night and have a great day wherever you are watching our live stream. And I'll see you next week to stay updated and ensure you never miss a positivity hack delivered. Follow Woman on It and turn on notifications to be alerted once the video is released. As always, our positivity quote comes from Positive Thinking Only and goes, look for something positive in each day. Even if some days you have to look a little harder. If you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude or your sleep patterns. Today is your day to hack the future. Hack the positivity you want. Thank you.
Thanks.